Pei, the big shot, has a salty nature. However, she only wears a female literature, and her identity is that of a lazy and sick seedling. Moreover, she is also a poor group, and her family is in dire straits. Mr. Pei. I spend money like dirt and don't want to struggle. From then on, she transformed into a devil. The Pei family is a well-known impoverished household in the village, and everyone is waiting to see if they can't afford to eat. As a result, why is the Pei family getting more and more prosperous? Big brother. I am the richest person in a country. Second brother. I am talented and famous all over the world. Third brother. I can't do it anymore. It's not very useful. I'm just the lord of a city, commanding 1,000,000 strong soldiers. Fourth brother. Don't ask, asking is like tears. My younger sister whipped me again and asked me to make money to give her a free-spirited life. Everyone. The terrifying Yan Eryi, known as the Bloody Executioner, was ruthless and unrecognized by his 6 relatives. On a certain day, Mr. Pei said, whispering, "My lord, I can't unscrew this bottle cap." That night, the mistress put on a nightgown and took 10 steps to kill one person, leaving no trace for 1,000 miles. Yan Eryi. Keywords of the novel. To be a salted fish in the text of the female protagonist without a pop-up window, to be a salted fish in the text of the female protagonist. Download the complete set of TXT, to be a salted fish in the text of the female protagonist. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. He is handsome and rugged, powerful and resolute. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. He is handsome and rugged, powerful and resolute. The emerald willow twigs and dances in the morning mist, while the apricot blossoms are pink and cluster-like, blooming all over the 100-year-old tree. At that time, spring is enchanting. Wushan village is located on the border of Wuyan Kingdom, with steep mountains, lush forests, and bamboo cultivation. The terrain is considered steep, and it is built along cliffs near mountains and water. Early in the morning, a man's angry roar came from the Pei family courtyard, and the man's roar woke up the neighbors. What else do you want? The person speaking is called Pei Qiufeng, the third brother of the Pei family. His face is almost turning black. A handsome and rugged face, resolute and majestic, with 2 sharp sword eyebrows piercing into the sky. The dark and deep eagle eyes have sharp divine light, and the high and straight nose bridge indicates a rebellious temperament. At this moment, his thin lips were as thin as a blade, and he pursed a very cold and hard curve, like a tense cheetah with a suppressed and manic expression. The person being questioned is a weak and gentle young girl who is as light as a chrysanthemum. She is scholarly and ink-colored, exuding an elegant demeanor. Pei Xiaoyin took a leisurely sip of wild mountain tea, which was the second day she had been dressed in books. Last night when she woke up, Xiaoyin noticed that she was wearing something, but it was too late at that time, so she went straight to bed. Unexpectedly, as soon as I opened my eyes today, I carried a big pot on my back. What are you in a hurry? She asked third brother in reverse, feeling that this person was too impatient. If you are right, you don't need to get angry. And if you are wrong, you don't have the right to get angry with me. Pei Qiufeng let out a ha sound and leaned back angrily. Just do it, continue to do it. You're causing trouble at home, this house will eventually be ruined by you. Faced with the accusations from her third brother, Xiaoyin's expression was indifferent. Even though she was dressed in coarse linen and penniless, she still held a noble and elegant demeanor. I'm not the right person for things. Besides, we are petty people and not hypocrites. If it were me who did it, I would be honest and accept it. But if it wasn't me who did it, third brother, don't be in a hurry to accuse me. I won't take this dirty water. She spoke clearly. In the land of Wuyan, since ancient times, women have been superior to men, and women marry men. But this is slightly different from the female figure imagined by Xiaoyin. For example, in this place, men take care of everything and earn money to support their families and have children, all of which are men's jobs. Looking outside, there are plenty of men with big stomachs and exhausted livelihoods. Whether a woman's life is good or not depends on whether the man in the family has the ability. Providing women with a better and higher quality of life is a lifelong task and pursuit for men, and it is their duty to do so. As for women, women are masters and ancestors, they need to be coaxed and confessed. A lifetime of salted fish, enjoying the care of men with peace of mind, being lazy and neglecting one's duties, all of which are common in common. Xiaoyin is traveling at home for 5 days. The reason for today's conflict is nothing more than due to his fourth brother Pei Dongzang. And the Pei Sangu in front of her was fierce and brave, with a personality like an autumn tiger and a notorious temper. Pei Qiufeng was extremely angry and heart-wrenching. He was worried about his missing fourth brother in his heart, and his face also showed a hint of anger that seemed to hurt someone. Suddenly kicked on the wooden door at home. His eagle-like sharp black eyes locked onto Pei Xiaoyin, his eyes fierce as if they could eat people. His tolerance for Xiao Wu Pei Xiaoyin has been completely exhausted. In his view, Xiao Wu is a typical person who pushes her nose and face, and the more she lets her down, the more domineering she becomes. In the past, due to her delicate and weak physique, she was particularly favored by her mother, coupled with many factors such as female superiority and male inferiority. He was too lazy to care about many things she did, and everything he endured was over. But this time it's different, this time it involves his bottom line. Group ID 537360958, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Also famous throughout the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Also famous throughout the world. Pei Qiufeng's face turned grim as he threatened. If you are sensible, quickly hand over the fourth son. Otherwise, if something really happens to the fourth winter, even if I risk my life not to do it, I will have to take you for burial. He spoke with extreme force, as if issuing an ultimatum. Xiaoyin raised her eyebrows. She remembered that women in this place never have periods, and instead, both men and women have good faith, which is why women are superior to men. The fragrance of women first suppresses men from the heavens. Whether they are high-ranking officials or peddlers, many men, even if they are fierce and domineering outside, can only bow down and submit in front of women. Recently, it is the fourth brother Pei Dongzang's trust period, and the man's trust period is very dangerous, and there have even been many examples of him dying as a result. The period of trust is similar to the tide of love. In the first month of adulthood, if you want to solve it, you can only find a woman, marry a woman as your husband, and have sex with yin and yang. So the men in this place all hate getting married. Many men have already been married before reaching adulthood, and when they reach adulthood, they will marry immediately to save their lives. Xiaoyin let out a hee-hee sound. Faced with the fiery and thunderous Pei Sangu, her eyes were like stars and moons, seemingly calm and composed, but a hint of coldness welled up in her eyes. She has a charming demeanor, but she has always been a ruthless person. Back then, she was also a renowned immortal figure. But at this moment, she is a bit unhappy. So she lifted her red lips, and in the cold and ethereal aura, a hint of lustrous and enchanting charm appeared. Beautiful as a mountain mandrill and ghostly, like a demon that devours human essence and blood. She asked the angry Pei Sangu back. The fourth brother is missing, why don't you go find him? If you're not dead, don't treat yourself as useless. And if you have time to yell at me here, why don't you calm down and think about where others are and where you can go? Pei Qiufeng couldn't believe it. Are you asking me? Otherwise. She held her cheek with one hand and looked frivolous. Pei Qiufeng's aura went berserk. Where the hell did she come from? I used to work this game for 3 days without knocking on the roof. Yesterday, I fell and the swelling on the back of my head didn't disappear. Suddenly, it seemed like something had changed. Cold and thin, it doesn't look like her. She used to be at most proud of being spoiled, relying on her being the only daughter in the family, and relying on the biased eyes of an old woman who valued women over men. She acted recklessly, but fundamentally she was a brainless rascal. However, now she is sharp-tongued, calm and clear, with a strategic appearance, as if skilled in mental calculation, elegant and noble. Pei, Xiao-yin. Xiao-yin responded with a good temper. Well, I'm here. Even if you don't shout so loudly, I can still hear you. After all, she is not deaf. She picked up the rough pottery tea bowl and felt a bit disgusted with the material. In her previous life, eating and chewing was the best and most precious. When she first entered the world depicted in this book and faced the poverty of being alone, her head was as big as a fight. It should be noted that she used to spend money like dirt, suffering from a disease of wealth and status, and now she is so poor that she doesn't know if she can adapt. Pei San-gu gritted his teeth in anger. Don't forget, you don't even have the surname Pei, you're not part of our Pei family. Xiao Wu Pei Xiaoyin is not the biological child of the Pei family, but an adopted daughter. She eats and lives in the Pei family, enjoying everything in the Pei family with peace of mind, but even complains about persecution. And the most detestable thing is still their brother's biological mother, perhaps blinded by lard. Eccentric and submissive towards adopted daughters, even more so than their biological counterparts. Xiaoyin pressed her tongue against her upper teeth, and she murmured a faint smile. Are you sure you want to continue wasting time with me? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. She is not inherently a kind and affectionate person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. She is not inherently a kind and affectionate person. She bent her lips to kindly remind Pei Qiufeng. As the saying goes, saving people is like putting out a fire. I can only tell you, I don't know where fourth brother is, and people are not hidden by me. It's useless for you to shout at me. Why don't you immediately notify the village chief to gather people to find them? After all, for every extra minute of delay, he becomes even more dangerous. On the positive side, it was him who ran away from home on his own, or he hid himself from being found. But it's also possible that someone deliberately abducted him. Remember, he's not bad looking. Furthermore, this Wushan village may seem calm and peaceful, but there is a lot of filth inside, just like those Lin Yangzi who have been coveting fourth brother for a long time. Lin Yangzi's lie is a good lie. She hummed and laughed, mocking and raising her lips. Pei Qiufeng was suddenly shaken, and at that moment his heart was in turmoil. If Lao Si was hidden by Pei Xiaoyin, he could force Xiaoyin to hand over the person. But if Lao Si was caught by those Lin Yangzi, the consequences would probably be unimaginable. Pei Qiufeng's face turned blue, and he glared at Pei Xiaoyin with hatred, then turned around and walked away in a meteoric manner. Until the anxious third brother left, Xiaoyin sighed. The appearance of having a difficult brain. She held on to her twisted heart, covered her lips, and coughed fiercely twice. Suddenly, her throat itched, coughing up a pool of bright red blood. Pei Xiaoyin. I almost forgot that her body was a naturally deficient premature baby, delicate and weak, and sickly from a young age, which led to her being accustomed to an arrogant and domineering temperament. Hey! She sighed, but there was no hint of sadness in her eyebrows and eyes, as if she had calmly accepted the image of a sick seedling. Sitting on the old rattan chair, she thought for a while before frowning and looking up at the morning mist outside the window. What a villain under the eaves. Forget it. She tidied up her clothes and stood up with a calm expression. I didn't want to meddle in things, but according to her temperament, I actually wanted to be alone. After all, she is not a kind and affectionate person. But now, under someone else's supervision, her third brother looks unreliable, so she should go and take a look. To avoid any accidents. In the early spring morning, there is a misty rain. When Xiaoyin went out, she happened to meet An Shui, who lived across from Pei's house. An Shui is beautiful and charming, with a soft waist and a touch of affectation. Seeing her satisfied expression, she must have just had a scene with her man. Oh, isn't this Pei Wu? And she saw Pei Xiaoyin's incredibly beautiful and delicate appearance. It is both demonic and immortal. A trace of jealousy swept through her eyes. Immediately, the yin-yang monster said, "Why did you wake up early today? Where are you going?" After she finished asking, she patted her forehead again and said coldly with a pure and innocent expression, "Ah, I know now. Did you go find Brother Lin, right?" She gave Pei Xiaoyin a malicious glance, with a hint of contempt and disdain in her eyes. Xiaoyin looked at Shui with a faint expression. Brother Lin. Brother is a dialect in this area, mainly used to refer to unmarried men. For example, the four older brothers above Xiaoyin are named after spring, summer, autumn, and winter, respectively. If arranged in a straight line, outsiders usually refer to them as spring brother, summer brother, autumn brother, winter brother. Once a man marries someone, he must be called a husband. As for this Lin Gu'er, whose real name is Shen Yulin, he was originally the youngest son of the Shen family in Wushan village. He opened a grocery store in the village and can be considered a small business owner. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Women are heavenly, men are all wicked and strict. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Women are heavenly, men are all wicked and strict. Previously, Pei Xiaowu had a crush on Shen Yulin and wanted to marry her. She cried and searched for life and death, but unfortunately, Shen Yulin didn't like her. She said that if it's not for you, you won't marry, but Shen Yulin said, I already have someone in my heart, and you and I are not suitable for each other. But Pei Xiaowu didn't do it. She stubbornly persisted, as if she couldn't understand Shen Yulin's refusal. Whenever she caught a gap, she would run towards Shen Yulin's side. Shen Yulin was so annoyed by her that he said, unless you can offer 10 taels of silver as a dowry, I will never marry you. 10 taels of silver is a large sum, which is no less than astronomical for Pei Xiaowu, who comes from a farming background. Even if the entire Pei family is sold and everything is ruined, it may not be possible to raise these 10 taels of silver. Shen Yulin originally intended to make Pei Xiaowu understand the difficulties and retreat, but unexpectedly Pei Xiaowu took it for granted, so he and Xie glanced at Pei Xiaoyin with a melancholic expression. She stared at Xiaoyin's face, feeling uneasy in her heart. Pei Xiaowu has a bad reputation and is petite and weak, but it must be admitted that he is truly beautiful. If she doesn't smile, she is immortal, as cold as frost. But once her red lips are slightly raised, she becomes like a monster, so beautiful that it captivates the soul. And Xie is jealous. She raised her lips harshly and sneered, Pei Xiaowu, do I bother you? Lin Gu'er doesn't like you, and you don't have any eyes. You don't take a shower to show your own virtue. She pursed her lips secretly, thinking to herself, what's the use of being good-looking? Pei Xiaowu was like a dog, wagging his tail and begging for mercy towards Lin Gu'er. He had no sense of being a woman, was not valuable at all, and was inevitably looked down upon by others. Xiaoyin lifted a strand of long hair and asked with a smile, what's wrong with my virtue? Aren't I beautiful? She was very satisfied that her appearance was exactly the same as before she wore the book. Otherwise, if she wore an ugly and unfamiliar face, she might ruin her mood. She said again, I see you're just worried about eating carrots lightly, and you want to find something to do if you have nothing to do. She swung her long sleeve straight over Shui. They still have business to attend to. If nothing unexpected happens, the third brother should be seeking help at the village chief's house at this moment. She needs to follow up and take a look. And Shui was taken aback by her criticism. I have seen someone who is narcissistic, but I have never seen someone like Pei Xiaoyin who is narcissistic. Isn't this a case of Lao Wang boasting and boasting? Holding his breath, Shui was burning with jealousy, feeling unhappy in his heart. She is not ugly, but at most she is a small jade, but she cannot compare to Pei Xiaoyin, who is known for her beauty and beauty. She deliberately added a bit of trouble to Xiaoyin, so she gloated and said, "Last year, a fortune teller came to our village and said you won't live to be 18. As a sick seedling, you are destined to be a short-lived ghost." And she smiled coquettishly and said, "Forget it, why should I argue with the dead? After all, you don't have many days to live." Xiaoyin sighed and thought to herself that this might be a case of being bullied by a dog in the face of a tiger's downfall. If we put it aside, people like Shi wouldn't be able to get close to her, not even see her face, and wouldn't be worthy of talking to her. I once again felt the trouble of wearing books. After all, no one dared to provoke her before, and everyone knew her temper. It looks gentle and elegant, but in the first second, it can chat and sing poetry with people, and in the next second, it can easily kill people. She frowned in distress and said, "I see you're really idle." She casually picked up the burning stick standing by the wall. "What are you doing?" And took a cautious step back. Xiaoyin smiled rather than smiled. "What do you think?" End of this chapter. Chapter 5. He is elegant and beautiful, clear and gentle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. He is elegant and beautiful, clear and gentle, and Xie urgently exclaimed. "Hey Xiaoyin, dare you?" Xiaoyin was about to speak when she saw Xie's paws numb and she quickly turned around, running at lightning speed. Xiaoyin was stunned and simply amazed. In the end, she weighed the burning stick in her hand. "It seems necessary to carry a stick with you. Is it fun to waste saliva by being able to use your hands without much comparison?" She still prefers simple and rough things. Xiaoyin carried the burning stick with an elegant demeanor, and her steps gradually drifted away with ease. After she left, Xie poked a head out of Anne's house, and her face was both angry and angry. Does this person surnamed Pei still have the ability? "I'm sorry." She spat in the direction of Xiaoyin's departure. Coincidentally, her man came out of the house. And Shi Fang only managed to hold back a wave of anger from Pei Xiaoyin, slapping her man as a vent. "You lazy guy. How many hours have it been? Aren't you cooking yet? I think you're intentionally starving me." Her man was slapped, not only not angry, but also in great fear. The man was afraid that Anne would get angry, so he smiled and hurriedly said, I'm going. In this place, women are the heavens, and men are all henchmen. No matter how men are outside, at home, dragons have to be coiled and tigers have to lie down. Wushan village has a total of about 100 households and a population of about 400. The village chief's surname is Wu, which is a major surname in Wushan village, with over half of the people surnamed Wu. Xiaoyin arrived a step late, and by the time she arrived, the third brother was nowhere to be seen. The son of the village head's family was tall and burly, carrying a copper gong and banging from door to door. "Isn't that Pei Xiaowu?" Someone pointed at Pei Xiaoyin. Everyone exclaimed, "The fourth son of the Pei family is missing. I heard she was the one who caused it." Pei Xiaowu is a sick seedling. He used to cry, and he had to live and die for Lin Gur. I think brother Lin is also a black-hearted person. Surprisingly, the lion is asking for 10 taels of silver with a big mouth. I'm sorry, he's also worthy of it. The crowd was full of diverse opinions. Some people also say, how precious are we women. If we can look up to him, it's a blessing he has cultivated for 800 lifetimes. But is Shen Yulin still being sentimental? Let's not see how many men are single these days. Yeah, but Pei Xiaowu is a real tiger. The Pei family has been raising her for more than 10 years, but she can't even make it worth 10 taels. She wants to sell her fourth brother to Mrs. Li for Lin's sake. What do you think of her? Mrs. Li. She's already in her 60s, and she's old enough to be an Azu. Xiaoyin looked around in the same place, her scenery was full of moonlight, and her eyes were light. Suddenly, I noticed a young man with a heavy heart, his expression full of desire and hesitation. As she looked over there, she saw that the man was like a frightened bird. He lowered his head with a guilty conscience and quickly turned back like an ostrich. Xiaoyin raised her eyebrows and briefly pondered, stopping a child. "Excuse me, young man. If you see my third brother later, just say, this is a red brick house." Wu Honglan's face was pockmarked. A few years ago, she accidentally ate wild fruits in the mountains, which were poisonous. At that time, there was a pile of pus on her face, and when the pus subsided, it destroyed her appearance. "Even my vocal cords are ruined, my throat is rough and hoarse. Don't be stubborn anymore. Follow me, isn't it much better than following that old lady surnamed Li?" The room was in a mess, with tables and chairs overturned, as if there had been a dispute before. But at this moment, there is a fragrance wafting in the room, which is clear, cold, and refreshing. Like snow lotus in the Tian Shan mountains, untainted by dust, blooming elegantly and quietly. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. A good man doesn't serve his second wife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. A good man doesn't serve his second wife. This is a handsome and beautiful man, he is clear and gentle, with gentle eyebrows and eyes. At this moment, his thin lips open lightly, and a soft and patient moan overflows from his mouth. He was sweating profusely, his clothes were already soaked through, his bun was disheveled, his clothes were open, revealing large areas of snow-white shoulders, and his jade body lay on display. His warm and moist eyes were filled with a hint of water, and his body seemed to ignite a fire that brought intense pain, as if it could incinerate him into a handful of ashes. Wu Nyangzi, this is not in line with etiquette. A man's voice should have been clear and smooth, but now it seems to have a hint of hoarse ambiguity. My mother is biased, but she has said that Xiao Wu is not only the adopted daughter in the family, but also the adopted wife of their brothers. The future depends on what Xiao Wu thinks. If Xiao Wu likes it, he will choose one of his brothers as his husband. And if Xiao Wu doesn't like it, their brothers can only be bound to Xiao Wu for a lifetime because Xiao Wu's biological father died to save Pei's mother, which was owed to Xiao Wu by their Pei family. Wu Honglan's face turned pale. She was already full of potholes, and now she appeared even more ferocious. "You've thought it over, don't give me a face. If I'm willing to flatter you, it's a way of praising you. Don't be disrespectful." Pei Dongzhang stiffened slightly and immediately bent his lips. "Thank you very much for Mrs. Wu's appreciation, but your flattery is really unbearable for Brother Dong." Wu Honglan raised her hand in anger, wanting to slap her. Only men cry and kneel to beg for women, how can a woman be rejected even if she actively seeks pleasure? Looking at Pei Dongzhang's handsome and elegant face, Wu Honglan felt a bit reluctant to part ways. "I couldn't bear to let go of this slap. I saw a handsome man with a clear and graceful appearance, as if there was a breeze in the forest. His delicate and fair skin, which could be easily broken by the wind, was astonishing. But at this moment, his face turned crimson due to the tide of trust, and his body was convulsing and trembling, which was painful. But he still endured it. Pei Dong hides a hint of sadness in his eyebrows. He spoke softly and let out a soft sigh. "Wu Nyangzi, why don't you let me go back?" Wu Honglan gritted her teeth. "Pei Wu, that beast with a wolf heart and dog lungs," she said with a fierce expression. "You also know that your men can only make a contract once in their lifetime. She sold you to that old lady surnamed Li, who was on her deathbed and didn't have much time to live. And once she dies, you won't get better either, you'll have to suffer from it in the future. Firstly, it is reputation. The country of Wuyan believes in the belief that a good man does not serve his second wife. Men should strictly follow the rules of their husbands, virtues, and precepts from a young age. A widowed husband who has lost his wife's head has a bad reputation. Women pick and choose among men, some of whom are clean and eager to dedicate themselves to serving. Why should they pick up a second-hand item that has been slept on? Another thing is to form a contract. In this lifetime, a woman is both the wife and the contract holder. There are no restrictions on the formation of contracts. But men can only get married once in their lifetime. Whoever Chui gave it to, this deed belongs to whoever. In the future, every month during the Xinqi period, Xinqiang will lose control, and only the contract owner can help relieve and soothe it. Once the owner of the contract dies, even if they remarry or engage in marital affairs with other women, they will not be comforted, and the rest of their lives will inevitably be tested by the trust period. So many families, when women are gone, men will be buried along with them. If they don't follow the funeral, they will either be driven crazy by Xinqi or be pained to death by Xinqi in the future. There are more men than women in this place, with a male-to-female ratio of 10-1. Women are more valuable, as can be imagined. Pei Dongzang pursed his thin lips lightly. He wanted to prop up his body, but after a moment of support, he collapsed back weakly and weakly. Wu Nyangzi, why do you need to? Your husband treats you with deep affection and righteousness. Don't hurt his heart. Wu Honglan clenched her fist and said, what do we women want? It's not his turn to speak up yet. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Cool and indifferent, as if starlight poured down on the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Cool and indifferent, as if starlight poured down on the world. The two faced off silently. Pei Dongzang's eyes were soft, but he didn't have much expression. People like him can hold on even if the sky falls. At best, he has this kind of temperament, is good at dancing with long sleeves, versatile, gentle, courteous, and gentle. He never opposes human enemies and seems to have no temper. Even if others treat him badly, he can still laugh it off. But if we put it worse, it's probably because he has no delusions in his heart, no desire is strong, he has no desires or demands, so he can naturally be indifferent. Wu Honglan gritted her cheeks tightly and said, you forced me. She kicked off her shoes, as if she had made a decision, and at the same time, a pungent scent of incense blew out of her body. This dish is very spicy and aggressive, mixed with the icy and refreshing aroma of Xin Xiang hidden on Pei Dong's body. Pei Dongzang's pupils contracted. He let out a sudden gasp, and his body reacted immediately. He saw Wu Honglan crawling over, her hand pulling away his belt. His warm and calm, beautiful eyes like obsidian, now turn into the erect pupils of a cat. In the depths of his pupils, there seemed to be a hint of surprise overflowing. Wu Nyangzi, wait a moment. At this moment, a young girl's soft and smiling voice came from the door. Xiaoyin leaned against the door of the Wu family and watched the scene with a faint expression. Wu Nyangzi, this world is particularly harsh on men. Even if you like my fourth brother, at least you should first inquire about his wishes. If he agrees, it is the right way to carry the sedan chair 8 times, offer 3 gifts and 6 betrothal gifts, and marry openly through a matchmaker. But if he defiles his body recklessly, whether unmarried or matchless, it will be enough for my fourth brother to eat a pot. According to the rules of our Wushan village, this impure man who has lost his virginity will be soaked in a pig cage. This is not love, it's harm. Any slight mistake will lead to a wasted life. Xiaoyin looked towards her fourth brother and saw that he was very drowsy. His originally warm and beautiful eyes were now out of focus, and his face was hazy and light. A woman's fragrance is both medicine and poison. Xiaoyin smoothed out the wrinkles on her sleeve and entered the room in a dignified manner. And Wu Honglan's face had already turned extremely dark. Pei, Xiao, Wu. Wu Honglan gritted her teeth, as if she wished she could tear apart Pei Xiaoyin alive. After all, interrupting good things can make anyone angry. Xiaoyin raised her eyebrows and smiled. All right, I'll take this person with me. It's already my family. You went to my house late at night and stole my fourth brother, causing me to carry a big burden. Nowadays, everyone says that it was me who caused trouble to fourth brother. I secretly sent fourth brother to Mrs. Lee's house, and many people gave me guidance and criticism, especially my third brother. Just this morning, they had a scene over this and scolded me severely. This kind of thinking is really unfair. She bent down to tidy up the scattered collar for her fourth brother. Previously, the fourth brother was pulled apart by Wu Honglan, but now she is helping to tie it up so that the fourth brother can avoid being disheveled. Can we go? Pei Dongzang stared at her blankly, seeing her gentle appearance, her eyes hanging down, and a faint smile at him. Her cold and indifferent eyes were as if the stars were shining all over the world. He suddenly fell into a daze. Previously, her expression was always disgusted and resentful. Because her biological father died to save Pei's mother, she resented every member of the Pei family. She bossed the Pei brothers around and always had a wild and irritable expression. Although it's not like punching and kicking them, it's often the cold indifference that hurts the most. Not to mention that she was once proud of her mother Pei's favor and insulted her brothers recklessly. But now, the gentleness and elegance are very different from her. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. All roads are paved by people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. All roads are paved by people. Pei Dongzang swallowed his throat before slowly nodding his head. However, as soon as he was about to get up, he fell back. Feeling weak and unable to support his own weight. Xiaoyin laughed heartily. Although Pei Xiaowu was delicate and weak, he grew up sick from a young age. But I don't know if it's because the books are worn. In the past, Pei Xiaowu couldn't carry her hands or lift her shoulders. Even though she was sick, she brought over the strong physique of her previous life. So he easily raised his hand and picked up the person from his waist. You stop. Wu Honglan was shocked. Women's physical fitness was not as good as men's, and being able to act recklessly relied entirely on trust. She was shocked that Pei Xiaoyin's strength was so great. Do you know that her own height is more than one head shorter than Pei Dongzang's, but she is so light in lifting weights. Anyone who watches this scene will be surprised. But Wu Honglan stopped Pei Xiaoyin not because of this. But rather, don't you just want 10 taels of silver? I'll give you that 10 taels of silver. Put down Brother Dong and give him to me. Xiaoyin let out a She looked at fourth brother, whose face was flushed due to Xin Chi's burning body. What do you think? What do you think? Pei Dongzang was extremely gentle, with a gentle smile on his face, but his black eyes seemed to be lifeless and devoid of any expression. He replied, You can decide. Xiaoyin frowned and said, You're really troublesome. I'm asking you what you mean. You want to have your own opinion. Do you want to marry Lady Wu as your husband and let her be your mistress, or don't you want to? Is it so difficult to answer a straightforward question? What is let her decide? His life is his own, not her. Pei Xiaoyin's. Pei Dongzang slowly lowered his eyelashes. The thick and curly long eyelashes cast a shallow shadow under his eyes, covering the thoughts in his eyes. His voice sounded unreal, ethereal, and distant. With a hint of unreality, the emptiness seems to come from another unknown and distant world. My will. Is it important? Never important. Xiaoyin fell silent for a moment. Only by trying, striving, and persevering can there be rewards. No effort, no gain. How would you know if you haven't even tried? Pei Dongzang was speechless for a while. He pursed his magnificent thin lips, which looked like a seductive poppy, the only bright color on a jade person like him. He looked up at her, no longer the usual Wenjun, only cold and indifferent, like a stagnant pool of tranquility and desolation. In an instant, he lifted his lips and smiled with a gentle expression. You decide, fourth brother will listen to you. Pei Xiaoyin. Wu Honglan breathed a sigh of relief when she saw this. She was really afraid that Pei Dongzang would refuse before, but now that Dong Gur is willing to listen to Pei Xiaoyin's arrangements, she thought to herself, is this not easy? Wu Honglan straightened her waist and had a strong foundation. 10 taels of silver is all my savings over the years. With these 10 taels, you can go to the Shen family to hire Lin Gur, and I can also get what I want. This deal is a win-win situation, don't you think? I think. Xiaoyin looked towards the door of the Wu family's house and saw Pei Sangu rushing over with anxiety on his face from a distance. So she bent her lips and let go of her hands. With a loud bang. The fourth brother, who was supposed to be held in her arms, fell to the ground and fell hard, with stars in his eyes and a dizzy feeling. She raised her red lips. The roads are all paved by people. The establishment of great achievements in life lies not in knowing, but in being able to act. Her fourth brother, I hold a reserved opinion. This is his life, and no one can make a choice for him. If he wants to marry you, then marry. If he doesn't want to marry, then don't marry. Group ID 537360958, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Don't be afraid, third brother will take you home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Unable to eat and walk around. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Unable to eat and walk around. Earlier, Pei Xiaoyin had discovered that this person's expression was different, so she followed suit and locked in Wu Honglan's place. Get out. Wu Honglan kicked the man with an irritable expression on her face. The man fell into a somersault. He looked stunned, his face immediately numb, and he smiled bitterly. Xiaoyin is always slow and leisurely no matter what he does. Pei Qiufeng is tall and has long legs. Even though he carries his fourth brother Pei Dongzang on his back, he takes big strides and exudes an unstoppable and brave posture. He quickly caught up with Pei Xiaoyin, who had left earlier. Xiaoyin heard the footsteps behind her and didn't turn back. She walked leisurely, as if playing in the mountains and rivers. Even leisurely and elegantly looking left and right, admiring the pink apricot green willows in the village and the smoke from the cooking. Pei Qiufeng saw her from a distance, his steps hesitated, and then he pursed his thin lips with a restless expression, walking straight past her with a big step. Yo, you're back. The Pei family is across from each other. And Shi has already had breakfast and is now sitting on a stool, holding a handful of melon seeds in his hand and spitting out the melon seed skin from his feet. She doesn't remember to eat or beat, and not long ago, she was scared by Pei Xiaoyin holding a stick and started to talk cheap again. Pei Wu, are you okay? Even my own brothers want to sell it for money. How did you say your head grew? And Shi sneered with a malicious expression on her face. Xiaoyin raised her eyebrows and looked down at the burning stick hanging from her waist. She picked it up and gently stroked the stick inch by inch. She smiled. Are you idle? Why don't I help you relieve your boredom? N's freehand brushwork froze. Xiaoyin's smile was like a flower, and she felt that someone like N Xie was owed. She may not be a big villain, but she is indeed disgusting. Eastern parents and Western families are short, they can be petty about small profits, and they can also criticize the population for small matters. And these people bully the soft and fear the hard, just like Pei Xiaowu in the past. The more you let her go, the more arrogant she becomes. She doesn't understand what harmony is. She only knows that if you're too timid, it's easy to bully. But if you dare, she will retreat in minutes. Never engage in a love of war. In other words, it's about kicking your nose on your face. You give her face, but she doesn't want face. Xiaoyin had a gentle and ethereal posture, but her eyebrows and eyes seemed to be playful. If you know how to speak, speak well and don't always be sarcastic. And if you don't know how to speak, then shut up and don't force me to sew a needle or thread into your mouth. And Shi's face sank with anger. She slammed off half a handful of melon seeds in her hand with a loud bang, and jumped up from the ground. She glared angrily at Pei Xiaoyin. I'll tell you, Pei, you killed that heart for me. Lin has a special heart, and the person he likes is Zhu's sister. If you dare to shamelessly pester him and not let him go, when Zhu's sister comes back from out of town, I won't let her beat you up. Xiaoyin sighed lightly and said, Look, you owe me again. She held a burning stick in her hand and shook it, then the stick slammed into her palm with a thud. I see you have a sharp tongue and a good ability to speak. Why don't you say it again when you face the stick in my hand? En's freehand brushwork once again stiffened. His face was pitch black, and his expression was extremely angry. You. She pointed to Xiaoyin's nose and stomped her foot angrily. Pei, you wait for me. Xiaoyin let out a ha sound, but the smile on his face faded a bit. There are one or two, but I can't keep repeating them. Let me remind you, I have a bad temper. She withdrew her smile from her lips and turned around to walk into the courtyard of the Pei family with a clear and shallow demeanor. And Shi's eyes were dark and heavy. I'm sorry. End of this chapter.